All right, Math 2, Unit 4, Section 2, Key Features of Quadratics. Now, we've already talked about a lot of the key features, being the line of symmetry, the vertex, the stretch and shrink factor, things like that. But we haven't talked about end behavior before, or at least not with me. So we're going to work on end behavior. We're going to talk about end behavior. So number one, just a really rough sketch. This is facing up. So it's a parabola facing up. And really with these problems, all you care about is the parabola facing up or is it facing down? So this one's facing up, and end behavior means we're going to talk about what does the graph do as we get really far to the right or really far to the left. And we can see here that the graph goes up as we go to the left or the right. So we want to have as x approaches positive infinity and as x approaches negative infinity. And that's what that means. It means x approaches positive or negative infinity. And I would like to write this first, but Kuda writes it second. So we're going to have to kind of fill it in backwards. As x approaches positive infinity, so that means it's getting over in this region over here, right? Getting very big towards the right. F of x also approaches positive infinity, right? So f of x gets big as x gets big, right? You could think about that as an increasing function. Now on the flip side, we have x approaches negative infinity. Well, that's talking about over here. Well, f of x is still approaching infinity. That's really bad. Okay. Now there's two ways to write this, and Kuda's going to ask you to write it the different ways for different problems. So this would be one way to answer the problem. Okay. The other way would be using words, and the way we're going to say that is it rises to the left. Rises to the left, and then we'd also say it rises to the right. Right? So if we look at the left side of it, as we look at it as it goes to negative infinity, as x goes to negative infinity, it gets bigger, it rises. The same thing happens on the other side. So these are two different ways to answer these problems. All right, number two. Our parabola is facing down, right? We know that it's facing down because we have that negative coefficient. So if we were to plug this in, let me just fill in the blanks here. F of x approaches, then we're going to have x goes to positive infinity, x goes to negative infinity. So we just need to fill in that blank there. So first we'll say that top one says as x approaches positive infinity, so we're talking about over here, f of x approaches negative infinity, right? It's going down. So the way to read this is f of x goes down, the function goes down as x gets bigger. That's the way that I kind of translate that in my head. And in the same way, as x goes to negative infinity over here, it also goes to negative infinity. All right. You'll notice on parabolas, because parabolas are symmetric and well, just because they're symmetric, they're always going to be the same, right? So really quickly, you can do these problems once you do a few. Those two will always be the same. And they'll be positive if they're facing up, they'll be negative if they're facing down. Now, to say this in words, we'd say falls to the left and right. Okay, so the words are going to be rises and falls. All right, let's look at number three. We've got a positive coefficient, which means that the parabola is going to be facing up. That's really bad parabola, but oh well. So we would say rises left and right. And for now on, I'm just going to swap between the two notations. So here I'm going to use words, and number 4, I'll do the algebra part of it. Number 4, again, we've got a positive coefficient, so we'd say, well, as f of x approaches positive infinity, on both sides, because it's a positive coefficient. And it doesn't matter, x could be going to positive infinity, and x could be going to negative infinity. Oops. All right, number 5. We have another parabola that's facing up, so it rises left and right. Number 6. Even though this is kind of ugly, it's still a parabola, right? It's a little bit closer to the parent function. We've got a negative, so that means it's going to fall. So we'd say, well, f of x approaches negative infinity for both times. X could be going to positive infinity, or x could be going to negative infinity. Now, something to note, whenever it looks like this, I think the multiple choices are kind of actually a little bit confusing. So you just kind of have to look at it slowly and work that out. Number 7, it's facing up, so we're going to say rises left and right. And then number 8, we have a positive coefficient, so we're going to say, well, f of x approaches infinity, where x approaches, I'm just going to say it this way, positive or negative infinity. Makes it a little bit faster. I'll say positive there with a plus. All right, that's it. Hopefully that's pretty easy.